Murder in the first degree, premeditated homicide, is the most serious charge tried in our criminal courts. You have heard a long and complex case, ladies and gentlemen, and it is now your duty to sit down to try to separate the facts from the fancy. One man is dead. The life of another is at stake. If there is a reasonable doubt in your minds as to the guilt of the accused, then you must declare him not guilty. If, however, there is no reasonable doubt, then he must be found guilty. Whichever way you decide, the verdict must be unanimous. I urge you to deliberate honestly and thoughtfully. You are faced with a grave responsibility. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Right this way, ladies and gentlemen.
Chewing gum? John? John?
No, thank you.
You know something?
I know lots of things. I've been advertising.
You know what? It's hot.
I never would have known that if she hadn't told me. Would you?
I suppose not. I've kind of forgotten.
All I've done all day is perspire.
I bet you're not perspiring like that boy who's tried.
I wish they would at least air condition the courtroom. I nearly died in there.
My taxes are high enough.
Well, it should go fast anyway.
Yes, it's hot.
Ladies and gentlemen, everybody's here. If you need me, I'll be right outside. Just not.
Did they just lock that door?
Yes, they did.
What do they think we are, crooks?
They lock us up for a little while.
Then they lock that boy up forever, and that's all right with me.
Oh, I never knew they did that.
Sure they locked the door. What did you think?
I just didn't know. It never occurred to me.
Shall we all admit right now that it's getting hot and humid and our tempers are just a little bit short?
It's been a pretty hard week. I wonder what's been going on down at the office. You know how it is in advertising. 6 days my job could be gone. And the whole company, too. They aren't going to like this.
I think this is our duty.
I didn't object to doing my duty. I simply mentioned I might not have a job by the time I get back.
Why don't you ask him to help you? He's rich. I bet he could get you a wonderful job. Look at that suit.
Wow, is that custom made?
Yes, it is.
I have an uncle who's a tailor.
Oh, how does he do?
Not too well. You know, a friend of his, a friend of my uncle, the tailor, well, this friend wanted to be on this jury in my place.
Why didn't you let him? I'd have done anything to miss this.
And get caught or something? You know what kind of a fine you can pay for a thing like that? Well, anyway, this friend of my uncle's, he was on a jury once about 10 years ago. A case just about like this one.
So what happened?
Oh, you won't believe. They let the guy off. Reasonable doubt. And you know, about 8 years later, they found out that that guy actually did it anyway.
Horrible.
Did they get him?
They couldn't.
Why not?
Double jeopardy. Unless it's a hung jury, they can't try a person twice for the same crime.
Well, that isn't gonna happen here.
6 days. They should have finished it in 2. Talk, talk, talk. Have you ever heard so much talk about nothing?
Well, you know they have a right to say what...
Everyone gets a fair trial. That's the system. Well, I guess you can't say anything against it.
I'd like that business about the knife. Did you ever in your life hear such a story?
Well, you have to expect that. Look who you're dealing with here.
He bought a switch knife that night.
Then he said he lost it.
A hole in his pocket.
A hole in his father.
Oh, man.
You know, that's really a terrible way to kill your father, with a knife in the chest.
Look at the kind of people you're dealing with here. You know them.
What's the matter? You got a cold?
Oh, it's a Lulu. These hot weather colds can kill you.
I had one last year. On my vacation, too.
All right, everyone, let's get started.
Let's make this fast. I have tickets to Hamilton tonight. I think my husband and I are the only two people in the whole world who haven't seen this yet. So, okay, Your Honor, start the show.
Miss, lady on the stool, can you turn this way?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's hard to figure, isn't it? A boy kills his father. Bing, just like that.
Well, it's this juvenile delinquency. People are letting their children run wild. Maybe it serves them right.
There's no point in getting emotional about it. It's a question of the evidence, not about how we feel.
We all agreed that it was hot.
And that our tempers would get short.
That's if we disagree. But this is open and shut. Let's get it done.
All right, now you people can handle this any way you want to. I mean, I'm not gonna make any rules. If we wanna talk first and then vote, well, that's one way. Or we can vote right now and see how we stand.
Let's vote now. Who knows? Maybe we can all go home.
Yeah, let's see who's where.
All right, there's nobody who doesn't wanna vote? Okay.
That was easy.
All those voting guilty, raise your hands. 8, 9, 10, 11. That's 11 for guilty. Okay, not guilty?
So what's the matter with you?
It's 11 to 1. Now we know where we stand.
Do you really believe that boy's not guilty?
I don't know.
After 6 days, she doesn't know.
In 6 days, I could learn calculus. This is ABC.
I don't believe it's as simple as ABC.
I have never seen a guiltier man in my life.
What does a guilty man look like? He's not guilty until we say he is guilty. Are we to vote on his face?
You sat in court and heard the same things as I did. The boy's a dangerous killer. You could see that.
Where do you look to see if someone is a killer?
Oh, well.
No, I would like to know. Tell me what the facial characteristics of a killer are. Maybe you know something I don't.
Look, what is there about this case that makes you think that this boy's innocent?
He's 19 years old.
That's old enough. He knifed his own father, 4 inches into the chest. That innocent little 19-year-old murderer.
Look, I agree with it, the boy is guilty, but let's try to avoid emotionally colored arguments.
All right. They proved it in a dozen different ways. Would you like me to list them?
No.
Well, do you believe that stupid story he told?
Now.
No. Do you believe his story?
I don't know whether I believe it or not. Maybe I don't.
So what's a vote not guilty for?
There were 11 votes for guilty. It's not so easy for me to raise my hand and send a boy off to die without talking about it first.
Well, who says it's easy for me?
Or for me.
No one.
He's still just as guilty, whether it's an easy vote or a hard one.
Oh, so is there something wrong because I voted fast?
Not necessarily.
I think the boy's guilty. You couldn't change my mind if you talked for 100 years.
I don't want to change your mind.
Then what do you want?
I want to talk a while. Look, the boy's been kicked around his whole life. You know, living in a slum, his mother dead since he was 9. He's a tough, angry boy. You know why slum children get that way? Because we keep knocking them over the head all the time. I think maybe we owe him a few words, that's all.
All right, life's hard. It was hard for me. I had to work my way through college. I fought, yeah, and that was a long time ago, and perhaps you do forget. But I fought, yeah, but I never killed anybody.
I know what hard luck's like too, but I never killed nobody either.
I've been kicked around too. Wait until you've worked in an ad agency and the guy that buys the advertising walks in.
In my country, you're kicking with science. But let's try and find something better than that. Look, I don't mind telling you this, sister. But we don't owe that boy a thing. He got a fair trial, didn't he? You know how much that trial cost? He's lucky he's got it. Look, we're all grown-ups here. You don't expect us to believe him knowing what he is. I've lived among them all my life, and you can't believe a word they say. You know that.
I don't know that. What a terrible thing to believe. Since when is dishonesty a group characteristic? You don't have a monopoly on the truth.
All right, save it for Sunday. We don't need a sermon.
what this woman says is very dangerous.
I don't see any need for arguing like this. I think we ought to behave professionally.
Right.
Certainly, if you insist.
Thank you.
Sure.
If we're going to discuss this case, let's discuss the facts.
Yeah, that's a good point. We have a job to do, let's do it.
Well, if you people don't mind, I'm gonna go close the window. It's blowing.
Oh, wait. I'd like to have the window open.
But it's blowing on me.
Well, don't you want a little air? It's summer. It's hot.
I'm really uncomfortable.
Well, there's 12 of us in this room. There's only one window, if you don't mind.
I have some rights too.
Well, so do the rest of us.
Couldn't you just trade places with someone on the other end of the table?
Oh, wait, if someone would like you
You can have my chair.
Should we get back to the case?
Yeah, let's.
I may have an idea here. I'm just thinking out loud now, but it seems to me that it's up to us to convince this lady that we're right and she's wrong. Maybe if we each talk for a minute or two, try it on for size.
Well, that sounds fair enough.
Very fair.
Supposing we go once around the table.
Okay, let's start off.
Two, you can go first.
Oh, well, I thought he was guilty. I just think it's obvious. In what way was it obvious? Well, he didn't prove otherwise. Nobody has to prove otherwise. Innocent until proven guilty. The burden of proof is on the prosecution. The defendant doesn't have to open his mouth. That's in the Constitution. The Fifth Amendment, you've heard of it.
Everyone has.
Of course, I've heard of it. I know what it means. I just think he's guilty. No reasons. Just guilty. There is a life at stake here.
All right, let's get to the facts. Number one, let's take that old man that lived on the floor under the apartment where the murder took place. At 10 minutes after 12, he said he heard loud noises above him. Said it sounded like a fight. Then he heard the boy say to his father, "I'm gonna kill you." And then a second later, he hears a body fall. He goes to his door and sees the boy running down the stairs and out of the house. Then he calls the police. They found the father with the knife in his chest.
Yeah, and the coroner put the time of death at right around midnight.
Right. Now what more do you want?
It doesn't seem to fit.
The boy's whole story is flimsy. He claimed he was at the movies. Now that's just a little bit ridiculous, isn't it? He couldn't even remember what movie he saw.
That's right. Did you hear that? You're absolutely right.
He didn't have any ticket stub,
Who keeps a ticket stub at the movies?
Well, that's true enough.
I suppose, but the cashier didn't remember him.
And the ticket taker didn't either.
Look, what about the woman across the street? If her testimony don't prove it, nothing can.
That's right. She saw the killing, didn't she?
People, let's go in order.
Just a minute. Here's a woman lying in bed. She can't sleep. It's hot, you know. She wakes up. She looks out the window, and she sees the boy knife his father.
How can she really be sure it was the boy when she saw through the windows of a passing L train?
She's known him all his life. His window is directly opposite hers across the L tracks. She swore to it.
I heard her swear to it.
All right. And they proved in court that it is possible to look through the windows of a passing L train at night and see what's happening on the other side. They proved it.
Weren't you telling us just a minute or two ago that you can't trust them, that you can't believe them?
So?
Then I'd like to ask you something. How come you believed her? She's one of them too, isn't she?
Oh, you're a real smart cookie, aren't you?
No.
Hey, now take
You're
it
a
easy.
real smart cookie.
What are you letting her get you all riled up for? Come on, sit down. Relax.
Listen, they did take us out to that woman's room and we were able to look through the windows of a passing L train, were we not?
Yes, we looked.
And were you not able to see what happened on the other side?
I didn't see as well as they told me I would, but yes, I did see what happened on the other side.
You see? You do see, don't you?
Calm down. It's your turn.
I'll pass it.
Well, that's your privilege. Six, how about you?
I just don't know. The people that lived across the hall,
They say they heard, an argument between the boy and the dad about 7 o'clock. Maybe I'm wrong. I think it was 8 o'clock, not 7.
That's right, 8 o'clock.
They heard the father hit the boy twice, and a few minutes later say they saw the boy angrily walking out of the apartment.
Right.
What does that prove?
Well, it doesn't prove anything. It's just part of the picture. I didn't say it proved anything.
Is there anything else?
No.
7?
Oh, I don't know. Most of it's been said already. We could talk all day about this thing, but I think we're just wasting our time.
I don't.
All right, so let's look at the boy's record. He stole a car. He's been arrested for mugging. I think they said he stabbed somebody in the arm.
They
Huh?
certainly did.
Yeah, okay. And he was picked up for knife fighting. Oh, and at 15, he was in reform school.
And they sent him to reform school for stabbing someone.
Yeah, so this is a very nice boy.
Ever since he was 5 years old, his father would beat him up regularly. He used his fists.
I would too. On a boy like that, and if I couldn't, I'd make sure his father did.
You're right. It's these kids nowadays. They don't listen. I had a boy. When he was 8 years old, I caught him with the neighborhood gang, fighting, and out in the street. After everything I told him, he goes and joins those toughs. I gave him a whipping he wouldn't forget. And then, when he was 15, he hit me. His own father, right in the face. He was big, you know. I haven't seen him in 3 years. Maybe I'm better off. A rotten kid. I hate tough kids. You work your heart out. Let's go on.
We're missing the point here. This kid is a product of a filthy neighborhood and a broken home. We can't help that. We're not here to go into the reasons why kids who grow up in slum neighborhoods end up being potential criminals, or why slum neighborhoods are breeding grounds for potential criminals. They are. You know it, and I know it. Everybody knows that children who come out of slum backgrounds are potential menaces to society.
And you said it there. I don't want to have nothing to do with them. Believe me.
I lived in a slum all my life.
Oh, wait a minute.
I used to play in a backyard that was filled with garbage. Maybe it still smells on me.
Now be reasonable. There's nothing personal.
There is something personal!
Now come on! She didn't mean you. Let's not be so sensitive. Sit down.
Whom did she mean? I can't understand the sensitivity.
Now let's stop this bickering.
We're wasting time.
You're next.
All right. I had a peculiar feeling about this trial. Somehow I felt the defense counsel never really conducted a thorough cross-examination. Too many questions were left unasked.
Well, it still doesn't really change my mind about the guilt of the boy. I have to agree with you. Defense counsel was pretty bad.
So,
This is a point.
what about facts?
So many questions were never answered.
What about the ones that were? Let's take that cute little switch knife. You know, the one that fine, upright boy admitted buying.
All right, let's talk about it. Let's get it in here and take a look at it. I'd like to see it again. Mr. Foreman?
We already looked at it once in court. I don't see why we have to see it again. What do you think?
I think the lady has a right to see the exhibits and evidence.
Okay with me?
That knife, it's a pretty strong piece of evidence, don't you agree?
I do.
So then, let's try and get the sequence of events right as they relate to that switch knife.
The boy admits going out of his house at 8 o'clock after being slapped by his father.
Or punched.
Or punched. Kid went down to a neighborhood store and he bought himself a switch knife. Storekeeper was arrested the next day when he admitted selling it to the boy.
I think we can all agree it is a rather unusual knife. A little hard to forget something like that.
The storekeeper said that knife was the only one of its kind that he had in stock. Why did the boy get it?
It was a present for a friend of his, he says.
Am I right so far?
You're right.
You bet he's right. Listen to this guy. He knows what he's talking about.
Next, on his way home, Claims it fell through a hole in his pocket. Says he never saw it again. You know what happened, people. He took that knife home, and a few hours later he stabbed his father with it. He even remembered to wipe off the fingerprints. Thank you. Now, everybody connected with the case identified this knife. Are you trying to suggest that someone just picked this knife up off the sidewalk and stabbed the boy's father with it just to be amusing?
No, I'm saying that it's possible that the boy lost the knife and someone stabbed his father with a similar knife. It's possible.
I want you to take a good look at this knife. If I can get it to open. Anyway, take a good look at this knife. I've never seen one like it before in my life. Neither did the storekeeper who sold it to the boy. Now, aren't you trying to make us accept a pretty incredible coincidence?
I'm not trying to make anyone accept it. I'm just saying it's possible.
And I'm saying it's not possible! What are you doing?
Wait,
Look at that same knife.
Quiet, be quiet.
Where did you get that?
I bought it at a little junk shop around the corner from the boy's house. Cost $20.
Now listen to me.
I'm listening.
You pulled a real smart trick here. But you proved absolutely zero. Maybe there are 10 knives like that one. So what?
Maybe there are.
The boy lied and you know
And
it!
maybe he didn't lie. Maybe he did lose a knife, and maybe he did go to the movies. Maybe the reason the cashier didn't see him was because he sneaked into the movies, and maybe he was too ashamed to say so. Is there anybody here who didn't sneak into the movies once or twice when they were young?
I didn't.
Really? Not even once?
You didn't have movies.
Oh.
Maybe he went to the movies. Maybe he didn't. And he may have lied. Do you think he lied?
Ha! That's a stupid question. Sure, he lied.
Do you? Do you think he lied?
No, you don't have to ask me that question. You know what my answer is. He lied.
Do you think he lied?
I don't know.
now, wait a minute. What are you, the boy's lawyer? There's 11 of us in here who think he's guilty. You're alone. What are you trying to accomplish here? You can be stubborn and try to hang this jury, but he'll be tried again and be found guilty as sure as he's born.
You're probably right.
So what are you going to do about it? We could be here all night.
It's only one night.
Come
A man
on.
could die.
Well, yes, that's true.
I think we ought to get on with it now.
I don't like this woman.
Well, you're the one holding up the show.
Obviously, you don't think the boy's guilty.
I have a doubt in my mind.
But you really haven't presented us with one piece of evidence to make us able to understand your doubt. There's the woman downstairs, or the old man downstairs. He heard it. He heard the boy shriek it out.
The woman across the L tracks. She saw it!
And he bought a Swiss knife that night.
Earlier that night, the boy and his father did have a fight.
Exactly. He's been a violent boy all the way. And while that doesn't prove anything,
Well, still, you know.
I have a proposition to make. I want to call for a vote. I want the 11 of you to vote by secret ballot. I'll abstain. If there are still 11 votes for guilty, I won't stand alone. We'll take in a guilty verdict right now.
That sounds fair. Does everyone agree?
I certainly am.
Let's do it.
Guilty. 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 Guilty.
That's 6.
Please. 6. guilty, 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 not guilty, guilty. That's 6.
Hey, who was it? I think we have a right to know.